Fox News alert, you're looking at a live shot of Palm Beach International Airport where former President Trump's motorcade is waiting to take him to Mar-a-Lago, where he's going to be addressing the nation later this evening. Democrats are trying to take away your right to vote for a Republican. First, they impeached Trump during an election year. They wanted to invoke the 25th Amendment, kick him out of office for not being mentally fit. And now they're trying to put him in prison before an election. For people who claim they care about voting rights, they're nuking them. There's nothing more undemocratic than putting your political opponent in prison. The American people voted to put Trump in power. Then they voted to take that power away. And that's how things work in America. Now that Trump's running again, a filthy DA is assassinating your right to vote. What's the crime? Well, the indictment says Trump made a false entry in the general ledger. Lock him up. He made a false entry in the ledger. Alvin Bragg will not stand for false entries in ledgers.
Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records. We cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct.
Cold cock an Asian lady? Not serious. Push a mom into subway tracks? Not serious. Make the wrong entry in the general ledger? Serious criminal conduct. But the thousands of businesses that put things in the wrong ledger, don't they have to worry? No. Why? Well, because their owners aren't running for president. And how's Trump going to get a fair trial in New York? How are you going to pick a jury? How many jurors have no opinion on Donald Trump and can swear they won't be biased? Who's the jury foreman? Rachel Maddow. Bragg doesn't even understand this case. He can't even explain it. Bragg says Trump broke an election law, but he didn't even put the election law he supposedly broke in the indictment.
The indictment says that there were 34 false business records. And they would then conceal another crime, but the indictment does not specifically say what those crimes were. We are assuming, perhaps, that they might be election-related. I'm wondering if you can specify what laws were also broken.
All right. So let me say as an initial matter that the indictment doesn't specify that because the law does not so require.
You're charging a president, and you don't put the charge in the indictment because you don't have to? You have to be kidding me. How did Trump break an election law?
The first is New York state election law, which makes it a crime to conspire to promote a candidacy by unlawful means. I further indicated a number of unlawful means, including more additional false statements, including statements that were planned to be made to tax authorities. I also noted the federal election law cap on contribution limits.
Does anybody understand what Bragg is saying? Does anybody? Trump didn't bribe anybody, didn't kill anybody, didn't plant listening devices at Chappaqua. Bragg's got nothing. So he brings the most convoluted case ever. Now, if you're charging a president, it's got to be airtight. All Trump did was have his lawyer pay a woman who was extorting him in order to protect his family. Well, Bragg calls that catch and kill.
Donald Trump, executives at the publishing company American Media Incorporated, Mr. Cohen, and others agreed in 2015 to a catch and kill scheme. That is a scheme to buy and suppress negative information to help Mr. Trump's chance of winning the election.
So you can silence an extortionist to protect your family, but if you get extorted before an election, it's illegal to do that. If that's catch and kill, then that's what the media does with Democrats every day. The media kills bad stories for Democrats before elections all the time and gets paid back with access and interviews and ratings, cash. So big tech catches the Hunter laptop story and kills it to help the Biden campaign. That's not illegal. How much was that worth? What ledger did Biden put that in? 50 CIA guys say the laptop's fake so Biden gets elected and they get fat federal contracts? Catch and kill. What do you think this is?
Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the insufficiency of this case. And I will say this to you. Today's unsealing of this indictment shows that the rule of law died in this country. Because while everyone is not above the law, no one's below it either. And if this man's name was not Donald J. Trump, there is no scenario we'd all be here today. Please understand that based on these charges. A state prosecutor is prosecuting a federal election law violation that doesn't exist according to federal election law officials. It's as simple as that. You can sum it all up like that.
Remember in 2015, Hillary's running for president? ABC News catches and kills the Epstein story to help crook it. Remember Amy Roback on the hot mic says we had the goods on Epstein and Bill Clinton, but we had to kill it. What was that? So this entire case is a sham. The only people more clueless than Bragg are his supporters.
What's going on here today?
Well, we're witnessing a small measure of accountability for the worst president in American history.
What crimes did Donald Trump commit to get him here today?
All of them.
What specifically did he commit today? What crime did Donald Trump commit to get him here today?
We don't know.
You don't know?
We do not know.
As far as my knowledge, he paid someone money to hush money.
Yeah. And which law did that break?
I don't want to say.
That is not the only law. Actually,
Hush money is not a law.
It's what represents the law.
He didn't pay for it with campaign funds.
Alvin Bragg is going to try to make it a campaign finance violation. I mean,
He's cooking something up, right?
Of course he paid with campaign finance funds.
How do you know?
Because he's cheap.
What crimes did Donald Trump commit to land him here today?
So this is related to the falsification of business records, it being a campaign expense.
But he didn't pay with campaign money.
The felony is related to the fact that these business expenses were falsified. What's the felony that he's being charged with exactly, actually?
Question
You like
for you.
Alvin Bragg?
I don't even know who he is.
You don't know who Alvin Bragg is?
I don't know anything about him.
It is a big task to indict a former sitting president, and this is a court that does their due diligence.
What about the 52% of felonies that he downgraded to misdemeanors of violent crimes?
Can I just say something?
Wait, yes, you can after.
I'll let you.
His lawyers already been proven guilty. It actually was covering up for him.
You think so?
Yes.
Where's the proof?
The proof is in the pudding.
You know who the victim of this crime is?
Us.
How were you personally victimized?
Well, we didn't get to. We have a.
When there's a crime, there's a victim. Who's the victim in this case?
Who's the victim? Man, come on, man.
Who's the victim?
Come on, dude.
Do you think he's guilty?
I do think he's guilty.
Of what crime?
Of lying.
What did he lie about?
Everything.
But what did he lie about to get him here today?
The thing that got him here today.
And that was?
Obviously, I don't know.
It's pretty obvious. This is such a hit job. Democrats, they crossed the line. They know it. And now the White House is in hiding.
As a lawyer, is he concerned at all that a local DA indicting a former president could down the line open up the possibility, set the precedent, that local DAs that don't like former President Biden could indict him?
I'm not going to comment from here.
So Binder's got to know what happens next. We're out for revenge now. And they're not going to get away with this. Paul Sperry wrote a great piece in the Post today. It's open season on Democrats. Republican DAs and prosecutors now have the green light to take down top Democrats. He's been accused of defrauding healthcare companies in Florida, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Alabama. It's a crime spree. Sounds like it's time for 4 grand juries. It's time for Republican AGs and Republican prosecutors in these states to open up investigations. How has Jimmy the Chin not already been indicted? He's a hot mess. And then you have the Clintons in Arkansas. That's the mother lode. The Clinton Foundation has offices in Little Rock. That thing's one big graft machine. Can a Republican DA in Arkansas look into Crooked's books? The foundation's an international conspiracy and money laundering op. Why can't the Clintons get fingerprinted? Are all their ledgers clean? And that's just local. Once Republicans take back the White House, are you ready? The president could sick the SEC on Nancy. Pelosi's been insider trading for decades, right in our face. And then you move on Hunter, interstate sex trafficking, the missing Chinese diamond, tax evasion. Follow the money because it leads to the big guy. You don't think Trump's going to indict Joe Biden when he gets back into the White House? The Democrats asked for this, and now they're going to get it. Let's turn it over to Brett Tolman, former U.S. Attorney and Executive Director of Right on Crime. How do you think this thing's going to shake out?
Well, Jesse, I got to tell you, I was hoping to learn something in the indictment. I was hoping that we might be surprised that maybe they had some. But I've never seen an indictment like this. I've brought indictments with multiple counts, and I had to show that there were multiple transactions and occurrences and different frauds in order to add every single count. All this was a different take on the exact same issue and allegation 34 times. I guess I've never seen anything like this, and it's not surprising, and it goes to how careful Alvin Bragg has been in presenting this case.
And so they take a $130,000 payment, and they chop it up like a sushi roll into 34 counts. And tell me, so they stack it, right? They stack this thing, and you're looking at it, and you're thinking 34. And then you start reading, and he doesn't even put what the big crime is. Can you figure out what the big crime is here?
Well, I finally did figure it out. It's being Donald Trump. But if we set that aside, let me tell you, when Reagan was president, there were a few thousand criminal statutes. There are well over 300,000 criminal statutes. So at this point, if he doesn't have to name it, he just refers to criminal statutes, and everybody, it appears, seems to go along with it. It's a sad day, but it's also tragic because we're now seeing finally out in the open what has been happening for decades, and that's prosecutors who have little accountability and they have no transparency wielding their power with no repercussions for how they wield it.
I mean, this is like when Mueller came out to testify at the hearing, and he was just like, he had no clue what he'd been doing for the last 2 years. You don't think Alvin Bragg, are you going to come out, say what he's doing? The press didn't even buy it. The liberal media in New York, he couldn't sell the indictment to them. They asked him 3 questions, and he skedaddled away to dinner. Is he going to get away with this? This thing cannot stand.
Well, Jesse, the rules and laws in this country to hold a prosecutor accountable have been so whittled away. Legislatures have been giving them power and strengthening qualified immunity to the point that Alvin Bragg has no fear. While he's in office, he presented it to a grand jury. So for all he cares, he's presented something, and the grand jury is the one that you need to blame if it turns out to not have merit. And that's the problem with this system. But you and I both know what's happening here is a line that's being crossed. You can't put this genie back in the box. And do I think that other prosecutors are going to bring charges against politicians they don't like? Yes, and the Clintons will be at the very top of the list.
Yeah, they better make sure their books are clean. I doubt they are, but they better make sure. Thank you so much, Brett.
Scrub.
Start bleaching, crooked. Let's go. Let's turn it over to Dan Bongino, host of Unfiltered on Saturday night. We're now in a revenge political climate, Dan. It's open season.
Yeah.
What's next?
No, totally. I read that piece. I covered it on my podcast today. I'm so glad you covered it by Paul Sperry. A couple of things. I want to echo what Brett said. I've been involved in the writing of a production of between the NYPD and Secret Service, probably, I don't know, a couple hundred charging documents, complaints, informations, indictments. Read through it today, and there was a side of me, Jesse, a small side, maybe 1% of 100% of my personality, right? 1% was like, Alvin can't be this dumb. Like maybe he's got something. He's got a pocket ace sitting there somewhere. And, I'm always kind of hesitant to jump all the way in the pool. Remember when the Russia thing first broke? You were like, wait, there's a PP tape? That sounds crazy, right. But I don't know. Maybe it's out there. And you're like, I better shut up and then you realize like, they just made this whole thing up. I read this thing today. I'm waiting for this bombshell. I get to the last page. This thing's even worse than you thought. I mean, thin gruel.
Yeah.
This thing isn't even thin gruel. This is an embarrassment. I mean, any serious legal professional, you put a Heineken, a green grenade in them, and you get them a little drunk and go, hey, read this, and black out Donald Trump's name. They're going to laugh and go, what kind of a clown joker wrote this thing? Folks, it's an embarrassment, and even the libs know it.
It's like the famous line, if you're going to come for the king, you best not miss. I mean, he didn't even come close. You have liberal media, New York reporters, going through this thing 3 times because they can't find a smoking gun, Dan. There's nothing here.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. Although it's New York City and finding 12 people who virulently hate Donald Trump, as Johnny just figured out, is not hard to do. He could very well get convicted. There's zero chance this stands on appeal. Zero.
Right.
I mean, there's no way any court of law even in a deep blue state is going to let this go.
And he won't serve any prison time if convicted. Like, no judge is going to sentence a first-time offender for bookkeeping.
No, not a chance. And can I just say a couple more things? There's an interesting legal theory here. John Edwards was prosecuted for using campaign donations to pay off his mistress. Donald Trump did not use campaign donations for an alleged affair. It's alleged, right? Yeah. John Edwards, I believe, had a kid. They admitted it.
Child.
He did. And now they're saying, no, you should have used campaign funds so that we can charge you what we charged John Edwards with. If you're scratching your head at home like, WTF, over? Am I missing something? You're not crazy. Like, there's no way Trump could have won this. Hey, one more thing. On a very serious note, Jesse, some people are out there saying, I've heard on both sides, like, they did this on purpose because they want to face Trump and they knew it was going to boost him politically. You're reading this all wrong. Listen to me, man. They want to see this guy hurt. Don't ever forget Hannah Arendt's book, The Banality of Evil, man. The people we're dealing with now, this is a political fight. It's manifested itself. But the underlying seed of this is plain good versus evil. These people want to see Trump hurt. China's watching this right now. They're icing out the U.S. currency. They're watching us tell people that we don't know what men and women are. They're watching us sexualize our kids, spy on presidential candidates, try to throw them in jail. The Chinese Communist Party and enemies of the United States are laughing right now as the banality of evil takes over in the United States and dumb, dopey liberals burn this country to the ground while our enemies dance on our graves and thank the Lord Almighty that they got opponents that were so dumb to burn the United States from the inside out. Liberals are smiling as this place burns to the ground.
China bribed Biden, and then Biden got Donald Trump arrested, the guy that started a trade war against China. It comes full circle.
Facts.
Dan Bongino, there you go. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but
Coming up, Joe Biden has his dirty little fingerprints all over this indictment. We just found the smoking gun. Stay right here. Alvin Bragg may as well be the Harry Houdini of the Democratic Party because he did what Democrats have been dreaming about since the moment Trump rode down the golden escalator. He arrested the man. All he had to do was wave a magic wand and Frankenstein the case that nobody wanted to touch.
Your predecessor took a hard look at this case and decided not to charge it. Federal prosecutors took a hard look at this case and decided not to charge it. Do you believe you have new evidence that led you to decide to charge this, or why now?
We have had available to the office additional evidence that was not in the office's possession prior to my time here. We have a distinct and strong, I would say profound, independent interest in New York State. This is the business capital of the world. We regularly do cases involving false business statements.
No one wanted this case until, you ready? Joe Biden's Justice Department sent their partisan hatchet man into Bragg's office. This guy, Matt Colangelo, former political appointee for Obama and Biden, they sent him from Biden's crooked Justice Department to run point on this case in Bragg's DA's office. After this case was stone cold dead, this guy came in and revived it. What were his qualifications? Well, he's never been a defense attorney, never even been a prosecutor. What did he do? Oh, well, he spent 7 years as an activist attorney for the NAACP. He also spent the Trump years ginning up partisan lawsuits against 45's White House for the state of New York. So the guy's a Terminator. So who better to turn a dead case into a zombie case than someone who hates Trump and is loyal to the big guy? So, of course, the big guy is just smiling.
Is the indictment of your predecessor politically divisive?
This is now the second criminal case hanging over Trump's head that has Joe Biden's fingerprints all over it. Remember, Biden personally signed off on the raid on Mar-a-Lago. Now he's putting Democrat activists in Bragg's office to slap cuffs on Trump. Not only that, Biden spied on the Trump campaign. And Biden personally hatched the fling sting, remember? Which dominoed Trump into firing Comey, which led to the special counsel. Trump was impeached for merely wanting an investigation of Biden in Ukraine. And now Joe Biden has personally launched 3 actual investigations into Donald Trump. No impeachment. Mike Davis is the founder and president of the Article 3 Project. How you feeling today, Mike?
I think it's an abomination what Alvin Bragg has done today with this unprecedented indictment of a former president based upon these bogus, trumped-up charges. And you talked about this Matt Colangelo. This Matt Colangelo is the driving force behind this. As you said, the Manhattan DA's office passed over this case. The Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office passed over this case. The Federal Election Commission passed over this case. Alvin Bragg himself passed over this case, and then he was taking heat from the left. And so back in December, he hired Matt Colangelo from the Biden Justice Department. He was a very senior official. He was the acting number 3, the acting associate attorney general on the parachute team coming in, and then he was the number 2 to the number 3. And this guy has been a political appointee for the Obama Justice Department under Eric Holder and Tom Perez, the Obama Labor Department under Tom Perez, who went on to be the DNC chairman, the Obama White House as a politically appointed economic advisor. As you said, he went to the New York Attorney General's office and they essentially created a job for him to get Trump. And he went after the Trump Foundation, Trump finances, suing the Trump administration constantly. When he worked in the Biden Justice Department just recently, he was the guy who helped oversee the prosecutions of Christians praying outside of abortion clinics while giving amnesty to abortion industry activists terrorizing Catholic churches, crisis pregnancy centers, and Supreme Court justices and their families in their homes. This is the clear connection between Biden and Bragg to show that this is a political hit by Biden to take out Trump.
So he sends a political hitman into the DA's office and voila, they slap cuffs on Trump. And he personally signs off on the raid on Mar-a-Lago and pretends like he had nothing to do with it. And he was there in the White House when they spied without warrants on the Trump campaign. But the media says, oh, Joe, what do you have to say? And he sits there and grins like a Cheshire cat. I mean, is this guy not deep state or what, Mike?
And we have smoking gun evidence that Biden, his scumbag son Hunter, and Joe's brother James took over $1 million, actually many millions of dollars, from Chinese and Ukrainian oligarchs. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has the subpoenaed bank records. And so maybe that's why Alvin Bragg came out with these completely bogus this completely bogus indictment of President Trump. It's a distraction.
So we're just learning, and we're going to have James Comer on later in the show because he took a deposition of one of, I think, Joe Biden's little mischievous henchmen. Allegedly, they had sent a lawyer to the Penn Biden Center in the spring to look after some documents that they'd stash here. Now, the raid on Mar-a-Lago that Biden triggered, was that to play defense because he knew personally he had documents that he had stashed illegally?
Well, it's certainly suspicious because President Trump, as a former president, had the absolute statutory right under the Presidential Records Act to have his presidential records in the office of former president, classified or not. Contrast that with then Vice President Joe Biden, who had these stolen classified records from the Obama White House in several different locations, unguarded by the Secret Service, unguarded by federally funded staff with security clearances and skiffs like former presidents get. And then Garland sends in this unprecedented, unnecessary, unlawful home raid with a biased magistrate judge, Bruce Reinhart, to get these documents from Trump while he works out the sweetheart deal with the Bidens.
Yeah, so we have now smoking gun evidence that they cooked up this stupid financial indictment in New York to play defense against the Hunter Biden wires. All right, it's starting to make sense. Maybe Biden's smarter than we give him credit for. Thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you.
Biden's fingerprints all over this indictment, as we just proved. But as we pointed out, the White House won't comment. But here's the thing. Trump isn't due back in court until December. That means the case is going to be hanging over his head the entire summer into the fall. Could impact the primaries, election interference. It's going to have major political implications. Biden can't ignore it forever. Or can he? Martha McCallum's the anchor of the story. How long can he go without he's just smiling now, Martha?
Yeah, we got the smile today and the nod and sort of that Cheshire cat grin, as you said, Jesse, and also from Karine Jean-Pierre. Basically, we're not going to touch this. She was asked and pressed on this issue by John Scher at the New York Times, who said, you know, you talk about January 6th all the time, and those are ongoing prosecutions as well, so why can't you address this? And I think one of the things that obviously is hanging around President Biden's mind, he's trying to figure out whether or not he's going to run again. And more often than not now, I think there are question marks about that. We are in an era of complete brass knuckle politics, as you have just laid out really clearly on both sides. There's deep history here. We see a situation where Hunter Biden has charges that were referred from the FBI to the U.S. attorney in October of 22. So when is that going to start moving forward? They said that they had substantive evidence to make those charges. So there's a big question, I think, in terms of Trump versus Biden and whether or not Joe Biden is going to feel like all of this has spurred investigation and some, you know, kind of lit a fire under the desire to get something on him as well. It's unfortunate for the American people because we have inflation, we have crime problems. I thought it was fascinating today that Alvin Bragg said that that we cannot normalize serious criminal conduct, and yet it's normalized all over the streets of New York every day. 22% increase in serious crime in this city, and this is what he's pursuing. But you know, I just wonder if it doesn't eventually help some other candidates because they're going to look at this and say, we were promised normalcy, we were promised calm, adults in the room, and it doesn't seem to be what's happening, Jesse.
I wonder if Biden's calculating this. If Donald Trump runs and wins, he's going to indict Joe Biden and the entire Biden crew. So Biden might have to run and win because if he doesn't, you know those indictments are coming. It's not like Trump's going to let this thing go.
Well, he certainly didn't have that look on his face today, did he? He looked very sober, very serious. I think it's going to be fascinating to see when he comes out just a few minutes from now, Jesse, what his tone is in all of this. You know, I think President Biden had an opportunity when he was asked about this to kind of say, you know, look, I hope that Alvin Bragg has an airtight case here, right? Because this is a very serious thing.
The country is yearning.
Exactly.
Right. We need clarity.
There's nobody who's acting that way, right?
Right.
Exactly. So, I mean, he had an opportunity to say, look, you know what? Everybody calm down. Let's take down the temperature. We're going to see where this goes. This is very serious to bring a former president of the United States in and indict him. So it would be great if Biden had said, let's hope he's got an airtight case. If he doesn't, he's going to have a big problem.
He didn't even distance himself from it, Martha. He just smiled like he knew something. Not good. Martha McCallum, thank you so much. See her on the story tomorrow. Up next, Alvin Bragg is leaking like crazy to the press, but we got some Republicans that are starting to step up. They'll join us next. The more we learn about the case against Trump, the more shady it seems. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg playing politics. We know that. So what are the Republicans going to do about it? Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, he's tried to get some answers from the stupid DA. He wrote a letter 2 weeks ago demanding Bragg testify and hand over documents they have on Trump. But Alvin said, back off. This is a local case. So Bragg won't share info with the House. But he will leak details to the media. We know that since CNN knew what was in the indictment hours after. Listen, and then last night, Michael Isikoff, the same guy who leaked the dossier, said, sources told me that Trump is going to be charged with 34 felony counts. And sure enough, today Trump's hit with 34 counts. You can't do that. That's illegal. You cannot release this information until the indictment's unsealed. It's a felony if you do. But these people aren't playing by the rules. They're dirty. Republicans need to figure out what they're going to do. because we need to get Bragg on the hot seat. So what's the plan? Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer and Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan join me now. So this guy says, buzz off, House. What's the next step?
You want me, Jesse? Or?
Go for it.
Okay. Well, first of all, Mr. Bragg conceded that they did use federal funds. In his latest correspondence with Jamie and I, he said they used federal funds in the prosecution, in this indictment against President Trump. We also know that this grew out of the special counsel investigation. And of course, that statute is a federal statute. And maybe most importantly, I think as everyone understands, this is election interference. And then Mr. Bragg in his letter said, I would like to know what questions you have for me. So everything is on the table. We do want Mr. Bragg to answer questions, and we're looking at how we're going to pursue that and take the next step. What I do know is Mr. Pomerantz, this is someone we want to talk to as well. He has left the DA's office. He has written a book. He's the guy who threw the fit and I think put the pressure on Mr. Bragg to go through with the ridiculous action that he took today.
Well, I think Biden sent his goon into the DA's office, and that's what lit this fuse. Yeah. All right, Representative Comer, are there going to be more than just letters that are strongly worded? Because a lot of people are a little tired of all the letters and subpoenas.
Yeah, I mean, we're serious about this. This is something that the Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, issued a statement today. I fully expect to see Alvin Bragg answering questions in front of Congress as soon as we can make it happen. This is unacceptable, and we're not going to back down on this.
I saw something today that you deposed one of Joe Biden's little assistants, Ms. Chung, and asked her about how she was squirreling documents all over D.C. What did you learn about Biden hiding classified documents?
Yeah, we learned a lot today. And remember, there are two investigations, Oversight Committee, that Jim Jordan's on as well, that we're conducting Joe Biden, the influence peddling and also his mishandling of classified documents. We brought Kathy Chung in today for a transcribed interview, and I want to thank Ms. Chung publicly for working and cooperating with our committee and answering questions. We learned a lot. First of all, we learned that the documents didn't just start mysteriously moving around in December of 2022 or November of 2022, like the White House has alleged. She said this dates back to May of 2022, that the documents were moved from the vice presidency to at least 3 different locations in a personal vehicle. And why they were in 3 different locations, we don't know. They weren't stored behind any lock. One of the locations was in Chinatown. Another location was in the Penn Biden Center, which might as well have been Chinatown by looking at where their money was coming from. And that the White House has never been honest with the American people. Remember, we never would have found out about this in March of 2023 if someone hadn't leaked it to the press that Biden was mishandling classified documents. So the White House then came back and said, yeah, that happened in November, December of 2022. She just testified under oath that it happened in May of 2022. So there are more questions today than we've ever had. And this is ironically what the special counsel is apparently going after Trump next over. The next supposed indictment is going to be over his mishandling of classified documents. Look at what Joe Biden's done. We don't know how many locations he has. We don't know what those documents were. We're very suspicious that his son sent one of those in an email to Ukraine, to his buddies at Burisma. And yet we don't get any truthfulness out of the White House. This is another example of a 2-tiered system of justice in America.
All right. So to summarize, President Biden okayed the raid on Mar-a-Lago for classified documents, knowing he had sketchy classified documents, and they were in Chinatown brought by Ms. Chung. Got it. All right. Congressman, thank you guys so much. Glad we cleared that up.
You bet. Thank you.
Donald Trump's legal team was out in full force today, vowing to fight this indictment, and the former president's attorneys admitted what we knew all along: the case is bogus.
Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the insufficiency of this case. And I will say this to you. Today's unsealing of this indictment shows that the rule of law died in this country. Because while everyone is not above the law, no one's below it either. And if this man's name was not Donald J. Trump, there is no scenario we'd all be here today. Please understand that based on these charges, a state prosecutor is prosecuting a federal election law violation that doesn't exist according to federal election law officials. It's as simple as that. You can sum it all up like that.
And Chris Kise is an attorney for President Trump who's working on the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case, and he joins me now. So you spent time with the president last night and this morning. Give us some behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, the president is resolved. He's resilient. He's really ready to fight these charges. I think he's very disappointed for our country. There was a lot of commentary today about how he looked upset or he looked mad. I don't think he's upset for himself. I think he's disappointed that this is what's happened. Let's make no mistake. Our democracy was indicted and arraigned today. That's what happened here today. And it wasn't just Donald Trump. You've got a prosecutor, an opportunistic political prosecutor who is looking to score points on the Trump brand, to build his name and reputation on the Trump brand. And he's brought a case that in 33 years of doing this, I've never seen anything this flimsy.
So he wasn't throwing glasses against the wall, cursing Bragg, cursing Joe Biden. He was strategizing about what the next step was going to be?
Absolutely. That's exactly what he was doing. I mean, he was in high spirits. He's probably in some of the best spirits I've seen him. I don't want to get ahead of him. You're going to see him here in just a few minutes, and American people can judge for themselves. But I think, if anything, he is more now determined to right these wrongs. Our democracy is really at risk here today.
I read the indictment. First sentence says the defendant orchestrated a scheme with others to influence the 2016 presidential election. How dare a presidential candidate try to influence his own election?
I mean, it just shows when you look at the indictment as a whole, none of it even makes sense. He doesn't satisfy any of the legal elements. There's no attempt. And we also have something that's not really being talked about right now. We have sort of an unprecedented departure from the normal judicial process. So you have a judge that presided over the last criminal trial, a judge that's presided over the grand jury, today the arraignment, and it looks like the trial. You would have better odds, Jesse, of winning the lottery twice for that to happen in a random system. And there's a reason for that, because usually the motions that are directed pre-trial to an indictment relate to things that happened in the grand jury process. So now we're going to expect this judge, and there's no disrespect to this judge, but this judge to rule on his own rulings. And this is just a very unusual aberration, and it just demonstrates that we're setting a very dangerous precedent.
So Fat Alvin judge shopped and got a ringer is what I'm hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jesse.
Counselor.
Thank you.
President Trump's moments away from giving his comeback remarks.